Okay, so here, right? Then he says, in general, whatever stages of accumulation of merit and purification of um, mental defilements one does, the preliminary practice, or the practice that comes first, is generating, arousing, dreamlike, illusory like bodhicitta, whether in the extensive, middling, or concise forms as necessary. Then the main practice is experiencing all phenomena to be as a dream or illusion. Ah, have you noticed that whether it's extensive, middling, or concise, this qualifier, dream-like, illusory-like beings, like, what's that? What's the deal with that? That's the wisdom side. The love and compassion element is one side. The wisdom side is another side. And sometimes we talk about perfecting wisdom and compassion. And often when we say perfecting wisdom and compassion, right? If you've read enough Buddhist things, you have attended enough Buddhist teachings, you always hear them saying, perfecting wisdom and compassion. And we tend to think what that means is, make it as much as possible. Wisdom. Make it as much as possible. Compassion. And that is the perfecting of wisdom and compassion. Yeah, maybe it is that. But I want to offer you something that I feel has more immediate relevance of what that means. Perfecting. Wisdom and compassion. It means these two aspects becoming more and more seamlessly woven together. Why? Because in practicing compassion, you can stray in the direction of creating more suffering for yourself and for others. So, what am I talking about? Well, compassion fatigue. Remember that expression? That's one way to stray. And so then, especially in those moments, we need to understand the illusory, dreamlike nature of these beings that we have tremendous love and compassion for. Now, on the wisdom side, if you are cultivating a clearer and clearer understanding of the illusory and dreamlike condition of beings and their suffering, again, if it can stray, right? It can stray in the direction of, it's ultimately all not real, so. You poor souls in Gaza, can you see it's not really real? Right? Now, most of us upstanding types will not say that out loud. So it's not even about the saying out loud, but it's the idea, like actually, yeah, it doesn't matter. No, cannot. So in some ways, right, wisdom and compassion at the beginning especially, they are almost like going in opposite directions. So the way to perfect wisdom and compassion is to bring them together more seamlessly. And there is no easy, linearly constructed sentences to express what that is. It's not logical. But you know it when you see it. Completely. Really genuine love and compassion, but fully understanding the illusory, dreamlike quality of all the happinesses and all the sufferings that are going on in the world. In terms of expressing this to a general public, it's actually very treacherous. So I would recommend to you, if you need to express this to others, err on the side of advocating kindness, understanding, love, and compassion. Keep your wisdom to yourself. I mean, all within reason. Yeah. Don't go around demonstrating the wisdom side and create misconceptions. And worse, your misconceptions not only it's bad, it's not good if the misconceptions turn people away from the Dharma, but more dangerous is people think, oh, that is Dharma, and they follow it. But better to keep the wisdom more restrained about talking about those things. Because the consequences of that is, of the two, is I think more dangerous. This kind of spiritually informed disregard for other people's suffering. But it also doesn't mean, if you're not crying your heart out, you're not a good person. And certain parts of I'm assuming, but I should not, but some degree of assumption, most of us in this room sign on to this view of, whatever it's called, the progressive, right? The lovey kind, all of that, right? But also, so we tend to consume and be exposed to all these messages about, if you're not crying your heart out, you are a heartless person with all the sufferings that's going on in the world right now. So they want you to cry. They want you to be miserable. How can you enjoy anything when there's so much suffering in the world? If you are not outraged, you are not seeing what's going on. I think they say Gandhi said that, But Gandhi is saying to people right in front of him and saying, okay, now we go boycott salt. Gandhi wasn't saying it so that you post something on Facebook of your outrage. And then, what's on Netflix? Yeah. Until I get outraged again. So the perfection of these two aspects of bodhicitta is not even about making them infinite, but making them more and more seamless. That their inherent tensions in the end become a living paradox. Yeah. Let it be a paradox, I am to love deeply illusory and dreamlike beings. Yes. How do I do that? I don't know. Well, I know, but it's not the answer you think it is. It's doing these other things and working towards loving deeply, genuinely, caring deeply and genuinely for illusory, dream-like beings. But I want the beings to be real! I want their suffering to be real so that I can give them real happiness instead of real suffering. We may not phrase it like that, but we do behave like that. And when we act based on that understanding of suffering and happiness, the more you try to fix, the worse it's going to get. Yeah. So this phrase, this expression permeates this whole teaching. Dream, then it says, then the subsequent practice. So remember, it says the preliminary is to give rise to this motivation. then the main practice is experiencing all phenomena to be as a dream or illusion. The subsequent practice is to dedicate the dreamlike and illusory-like virtues, merit, to the benefit of all beings. It's sandwiched by love and compassion with wisdom in the middle. You see how? Yeah, it's bringing these two together. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I cannot stand seeing others suffer. I cannot stand that beings are not experiencing genuine, stable happiness. So that's why I'm doing this. What is the this that I'm doing? To train to see that this is all dreamlike, illusory-like. Eh? Yes. It's fine if you go, eh? That means you're awake. That means you heard it right. Then you train that. How do you know that training in seeing all experiences as dreamlike and illusory-like? You become more willing and concerned to benefit beings. The end. Oh, you Buddhists. On a good day, others find us interesting to talk to. On a bad day, it's extremely frustrating to talk to these Buddhists. And sometimes you are the one saying this to yourself. On a bad day, this is so frustrating. Doesn't make any sense. On a good day, ooh, I'm so sophisticated. It's okay. That's part of our condition, but we can change. So try to become less and less frequently either of those, good day and bad day, even out. Even out, not in the sense of the equivalent of taking medication to numb your strong emotions, but to see and fully understand the nature of emotions, of feelings, of opinions, of thoughts. Seeing the nature won't immediately take away the pain. It won't. But you're introducing some insight into that experience. So you don't do yourself any favors if you think, oh, just seeing its nature, I become free. No. The Zen tradition is filled with stories that illustrate what I'm talking about, but they don't explain to you what the heck it means. You see? So you're just like, what? Right? Now, of course, if you're in a room full of Zen practitioners, you're not going to go, what? I don't want to look stupid.
Studies.
Yeah, it needs to be a very subtle nod, okay? Two big nods, you're off. Right? You have to just... But that's their internal logic. They tell these stories that you say is paradoxical. But actually, they're talking about this. And this is also how the relative and the absolute comes together as non-dual. But the Tibetan tradition has more patience with words. And so that's the style we're conducting it here. And maybe too many words. Because then it becomes fodder for our blah blah blah. our false gods, our false Buddhas. And we think, oh, I understand. Now more words, okay? Then, like a dream or illusion, the one who dedicates, that means the one who dedicates this virtue, this merit. Sentient beings who are the object of dedication, those that you're dedicating this to. And all the roots of virtue that you're dedicating, they are no different from your own mind, and should be known as the miraculous manifestation of mind itself. There is a last-minute turn to what we might call, wow, so inspiring. Yes, right? See that they are the magical display of your mind. A beautiful scene conjured up by the mind. Now because, right, the act of dedicating merit, which means, giving away everything that you worked so hard for, if someone needs it. That's what dedication of merit, the implication of that. Everything that you worked so hard for, foolishly, perhaps, willingly, you give away. Now this is a beautiful thing. Yeah, this is a beautiful thing. But here, Gampopa says, understand that this beauty arises from your mind. It's the miraculous display of your mind. Now do you understand how much good you can bring into this world when you know what your mind is? Next, here's another teaching called listening to the Dharma with perfect intention and application. So here are all the little pithy instructions that directly can be applied to how we practice the Dharma, how we are going to safeguard our heart, which I think is the title of today's talk. Whatever the title, I always just talk about the same things. These guys from Urban Dharma. Yeah, he said that before. All the titles are just excuses. It's like, what will bring some people to wake up on a Saturday morning when it's better to stay in bed or read the New York Times? Anyway, in general, for listening to the Dharma, there are 2 points: perfect intention and perfect application. And so he's saying, there are 2 aspects to how you learn the Dharma. See, you can be reading Dharma books and not, the spy is awake. SIRI is spying. Oh, good. It's not connected to the internet. Okay, it cannot report to its bosses. Good. Yeah, they are spying for sure. Luckily, I'm quite fine with them spying. Like, you go ahead and know whatever you want to know. Yeah, 2 points. I mean, we could be studying Dharma because we are curious, because of academic interest, intellectual interest. Yeah, that's fine, It's not saying you can't do that. But if you want, if your reason for knowing these spiritual instructions is to, bring about the result that these instructions are meant to deliver, then you have to listen to them in the following way, is what Kampupa is saying. And as for that, there is, again, the motivation. Check your motivation. Why are you listening? Because we forget. Even I forget. Even in Jing, sometimes I veer off to some other motivation. If I forget the motivation, which is to help you free yourself, right, from the mental defilements and the suffering that arise from the presence of mental defilements, I can often, I can tell you that, I catch myself straying into, I want to talk about some intellectual point, I want to talk about some abstract that I got excited about reading yesterday, in the news, la 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 la. Then I'm getting better and better at coming back without you noticing that. So I'm showing, the tricks that I have in my bag. But nonetheless, the motivation strays. Likewise, okay, when you're listening, you may have come here with the quote-unquote right motivation, but it's always shifting and changing, So anyway, here, perfect intention has 4 aspects. Yeah, this is the way that the Tibetan tradition is very different from Zen. Yeah? Lists. We love lists. And if you go full listing, 4 is just the beginning. Because in the first point of the 4, there are 7. And each of the 7 has 3 parts. Yes. And by the time you get to the list, you're like, where am I in this forest? Thankfully here there's only 4. No more, and point 1 has 3 more. Perfect intention has 4 aspects. Not for the sake of wanting fame for oneself, but with the intention of liberating others from the great ocean of suffering. And so people teaching Dharma should remember this. And people learning Dharma should remember this. How so? Because among certain circles that we run around, knowing these things elevates your status. Or even, maybe in Johnson City, just driving around, you feel better about yourself. Certain bumper stickers you see, certain flags you see, you're like, it should not be like this. This is the fame, right? Not for the sake of wanting fame for oneself, but with the intention of liberating others from the ocean of suffering. Back to bodhicitta. Next, not for the sake of gaining wealth and honor for oneself, but with the intention of gaining all-knowing wisdom for others. Yeah, so not for the sake of being honored because I know, like they say, knowledge is power, right? And with this power comes wealth and honor. Not for that. Yes, you want to gain. But what is it that you want to gain? In contrast to wealth and honor? And so maybe not so much in this society. Knowledge of Dharma don't give you wealth and honor. But in Gampopa's world, it does. Especially that time. The whole of the Tibetan nation is invested in the promotion and the growth of Buddhist teachings. So whoever is learned in that area gets prestige, gets support, gets resources donated to them. So that's part of the context here. But it's still relevant to us. What is it that we're trying to gain in listening to the Dharma? All-knowing wisdom. All-knowing wisdom might sound like an attribute of God. God is all-knowing, Then we substitute, sometimes with God, with Santa Claus. He knows what you have done. Charcoal for you this year. And one doll. But here, all-knowing is talking about knowing cause and effect. When you know karmic causality, at least the principle of karmic causality, then poetically you can say you are all-knowing now. Because everything happens according to this principle. You cannot plant a mango seed and expect peach to blossom. You may want as much as you want and pray to whatever God you pray to. It's just not going to happen like that. Karmic causality is what all-knowingness essentially means. The more you can see karmic cause and effect working, the more you will see everything clearly. It's not about past lives, it's not about future lives, although it has implications. Then it's not even about last month and next month, although it has those implications. Karma is, so when you say living more in the present, I would agree if we factor this in. Presently aware of how whatever it is that I am with presently, it's also based on karmic causality. That how our mind, right, responds to whatever it is that has turned up is the working out of this cause and effect. If you encourage a certain type of causes, then a certain pattern of effects manifest. But instead, when good things happen, you're like, yep. When bad things happen, me, what did I do? Hello? You really want that answer? What did I do? Well, not for the sake of winning arguments. Learning Dharma, not for the sake of winning arguments for oneself, but with the intention of conquering the enemy of mental defilements for others. All of this end with for others, for others. But here, for others doesn't mean, like you literally go, conquer someone's mental defilements. Let me teach you how not to be selfish. No, we're not talking about that. This is based on the understanding, the point that you cannot really help someone with their selfishness if you have that within yourself. This is actually very different from the idea of I will be a good therapist because, or I'll be a good addiction counselor because I'm addicted myself. Which may work in that context to some degree, but don't extend that. In the case of Dharma, it says no. You cannot say, oh, I have so many mental defilements, so I can tell you all about mental defilements. I mean, you see this. People, because of the personality cult, that is promoted by social media. And then because of certain teachings in Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism, about how you are to view the teacher as perfect and stuff like that. And then when clearly someone is not behaving the way they should, right? You have followers going, oh, he's just showing me. Yeah, you could take that as your take-home lesson, but for your sake, stay away from this person. Because if you come within their range of them taking advantage of you, probably that's what's going to happen. And you think, oh, I'm practicing Dharma. No, it's not. So here, instead of winning arguments for oneself, but with the intention of conquering. So winning arguments is like you win. So what is it that you're trying to win here? To gain the upper hand when it comes to mental defilements, afflictive emotions, emotions that bring pain, emotions that cause harm to yourself, to others. And not for the sake of finding fault with the Dharma teacher. Yay! Thank you, Gampopa. But for the intention of respecting the Dharma teacher and the Dharma for others. You don't respect the Dharma teacher or even the Dharma for the sake of Dharma or Dharma teacher, but for others. What it's saying here is, yeah, of course, we're not saying you go to listen to a Dharma teacher and, oh, I respect, everything they say must be true. No, we're not advocating that. It's just saying, if your goal there is to go find fault, well, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. That's also wrong. There are better things to do. Go for a hike. There are people like that. And we are those people. Like I said, both teachers and students, these faults equally apply. And it's not like a one-time deal, oh, I'm free from these faults. No. They are the tendencies that we lapse into. Yeah, so if you apply this, to like the one teaching rather than the one listening, although this is the main point for the ones listening to the Dharma, right? That's what this instruction, but it also applies to the one teaching. If the one teaching is more interested in kind of displaying their greatness to get respect and admiration, then that's the wrong reason. Perfect application has 3 parts. 4 and 3. 3 parts is usually pretty easy because 3 parts is always before, main part, at the end. So first, during preparation, arouse bodhicitta while knowing that everything is like a dream and illusion. He comes back to that theme. Give rise to the great motivation, but understand that who you're trying to help, and that includes yourself, They have dream-like illusory, like illusory here is referring to the illusion of magicians, actually. Magicians conjure up an experience for us. Yeah, that's the illusory it's referring to. So dream-like quality, magician's illusory quality. Yeah. So while knowing that everything is like a dream, like a magician's illusion. In the main part, listening to any teaching with the meaning of the 6th perfection complete. So here you need to go learn about these 6 perfections. A very good book is Shantideva's Way of the Bodhisattva. So the 6 perfections are taught there. It's the perfection of giving, generosity, the perfection of disciplined conduct, the perfection of patience, the perfection of joyful effort, perfection of concentration, the mind being stable. And in the case of Shantideva, it's the mind being stable in bodhicitta. And then finally, the perfection of understanding, of wisdom. So he says, and the main part of listening to, the main way to execute, so to say, right? Because this is about how you learn or listen to the Dharma. So what this means here is, as for application, when you're listening to the Dharma, you cannot listen to anything in a vacuum. Hear it in the context of understanding the bigger picture. And the bigger picture in terms of the path to awakening is cultivating the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections. Then, then it's the perfect execution of listening to Dharma. Not perfect execution of carrying out Dharma. That's not what's going on. The focus here. Here is how first you have to have the perfect intention, motivation. Then as you're listening, you should be informed by this. What is the bigger picture? The bigger picture of the path is the 6 perfections of bodhisattvas. And afterwards, guess what? Dedicate all the roots of virtue to the attainment of perfect awakening for the sake of all beings. Back to that paradox, The meaning of that all condensed for the purpose of practice. So he says, okay, all of that, if we condense it, and for the purpose of someone who wants to practice this rather than someone who wants to teach this, debate this, defend this, or find fault with this. But if you want to summarize all of that for the purpose of you being able to carry it out, is this. For the sake of all sentient beings, illusory and dreamlike, but yet limitless as space, I should attain perfect Buddhahood. And for that purpose, for that reason, I should listen to the precious instructions, understand them, realize them, and practice them. Here the difference between understanding and realizing is, understanding is somewhat still intellectual, right? Because to understand something, you first have to intellectually grasp, right, the ideas being taught. Then, in this case, to realize them means now you take that understanding and put it alongside your experiences, your life experiences. Either alongside, that's one way of putting it, or let those teachings be your glasses and look at all the things around you and say, am I seeing things clearer now? Maybe not. And if it's not, then go back to the optometrist. Need some adjustments. That's the realize. And then, now that you see more clearly, then it says practice. So practice now means, and henceforth, right, with regards to this kind of scenario, this kind of situation, this kind of exchange, this kind of interaction, I should do it in this way. And this way or that way comes from the realizations. So now put that into practice. One must generate such a special intention. You have to do it this way when you're learning the Dharma, listening Dharma. So this is also applicable if you're just reading Dharma books. These intentions. Questions? Comments? Yes, please.
Actually, I think I mentioned I was listening to a talk of yours earlier today.
Uh-huh, okay.
I heard your voice in my head. And it was, you were talking to the Ecumenical Buddhist Society of Arkansas.
Oh yeah, uh-huh, sure.
Nice group of people. But you brought up a point, and it kind of twisted in my, it made my brain kind of have a spasm. And you talked about, and it's totally related to this too, you talked about how as we practice, aspire to be enlightened and a Buddha, you said something like, we shouldn't have that expectation for other people. Is that like...
Keep going.
And because and it goes back to how you mentioned we work on ourselves for our liberation. But when I realized that I was guilty of doing that. It's like, I was like, I know what works. Why doesn't everybody else do this?
Yes.
And I think, it's comical, but, it's so relevant, especially now. It's like, if everybody just, like, come on, And I just wanted to bring that up because I surely can't be the only person.
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
yeah, but
the world will be a much better place if they all listen to me.
Exactly.
We all have various versions of that walking around, inhabiting our heads. So there you go.
And part of my practice is, it's like when I experience a person that I consider difficult, or just everybody.
Everybody is difficult?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah, that's clear. I didn't think that was what you mean.
Consider them, it's like you have a Buddha nature. You have some kind of essence. This is, you're clouded over, I'm clouded over, hopefully maybe we'll get somewhere or nowhere. But
yes.
but I
Right?
just thought
Namaste, y'all. The divine in me salutes the divine in you.
Yeah, right.
Which is a fake translation, but it's good.
What's it mean for real? Sorry.
It's an act of respect.
Yeah.
And then in the Indian context, it's hierarchical. It's not at all flat. No. Certain people namaste certain people do not namaste certain people.
Oh.
Oh yeah. In the Indian context, and now it doesn't mean that it has to continue like that. I'm just saying there's a whole context of caste and all of that. So the boss would never say to the employee namaste. The employee would be like, wait, what's going on?
Wow.
Yeah, because it's not. Anyway, but we can change the meaning here. We're not in India. We're in Johnson City, so the divine in me salutes the divine in you.
Yeah.
The Buddha nature in me, y'all. Namaste, y'all.
It's just that,
Yeah,
just
of
that
course.
existence.
And then when we do that, right, that is when we then, right, the Dharma comes in. See how even something so noble becomes an attempt to build self in an unskillful way. Okay? So we're building unskillful sense of self. out of these opinions. And we see it once, we see it twice, we see it 3 times. The more we see it, the more we will kind of want to wean ourselves off that habit. And it can happen. It cannot happen if we look away. Pretend it's not. And that's about the skillful attention. And skillful attention is not obsession. So here's another caution. All you recovering Catholics, Jews, and Southern Baptists, watch out for guilt. Guilt that leads to self-hate, whether either strongly or subtle ways. Self-hate and not comfortable in your own skin. You have to allow yourself, find ways to be comfortable in your own skin, even if you also know, but that is not the ideal of Buddhahood. Yes, but you have to start with comfortable in your own skin in all the messiness, stinkiness, beauty, ugly of whatever that skin is right now. You have to make more effort there. I don't really need to say this when I'm in Asia teaching, because they don't have that so strongly. But then more and more of Asia is educated in the Western way, so they may not have Southern Baptist preachers, but it's kind of in the vibe. And more with these educated, sophisticated urbanites in Asia, I also have to repeat this. Yeah. Yes.
You spoke about ultimate bodhicitta, the dream-like, the illusory. When I first encountered this, it was difficult to grasp, and then, but there were 2 things that just, when we dream, we have vivid dreams, it's real, right? But it's not. And then I had an accident, a really serious accident about a year ago, where I was unconscious. They pulled me out, and I remember just being in that place where it was illusory. It was, and it wasn't a bad thing at all. It was a place of gratitude, really. But I'm just, I don't know what I'm asking here, but the idea of relative and bodhicitta, the one thing that you said very quickly that really struck me was something like, the relative and the absolute come together to make the non-dual. And that's just the whole of it? Is that what you meant by that?
Yes. That we will continue to be challenged by how these 2 are non-dual. And we'll continue to be challenged by that. But don't give up on either. So this is where the faith comes in. Actually, we don't have time, but there's a whole instruction on the importance of faith. This is the kind of faith that we need to have. All spiritual traditions require faith. But where they differ is faith in what? Here, I would say, this is the faith that we need to have. A faith that, in fact, yes, in the perfected state, is the non-duality of the relative and ultimate that is realized, is the non-duality of wisdom and compassion that is perfected.
Is that kind of like a faith in the process will get you to that?
Yeah.
And that's
and also
process.
a faith in that this result is possible.
Right.
And as for that, nobody can give that to you. Nobody can teach you that, unfortunately. It's something magical, whether that faith is there or not. But you can remove, although I would say you cannot, no one can tell you how to let that faith appear in your life. You can remove the obstacles that you put up to prevent that from arising. So keep in check your cynicism. Keep in check Huh? Keep in check. I know it's hard, but keep in check. Just don't go all the way with it. Keep in check. Your tendency to be pessimistic about things. Keep in check. I know it's hard, but therefore keep in check. It doesn't mean like it's hard, I'm just going to go all the way, right? It's like saying, I'm walking down a gradient of this that is very steep, it's really hard. What do you do in those cases? It's really hard, I'm just going to give up. No, we don't do that. We just have to restrain, Not all restraints are bad. Keep it in check. Yeah. Then, the less obstacles we build around allowing that kind of faith to arise, the more likely that faith arises. This is the faith that we need to have. And I said we need to have. It doesn't mean, you can order it on demand. Also, don't pretend. Don't pretend. Have faith. That faith can arise. One section, I know we have passed the time that we've allocated for this gathering, but let me quickly, there's one section of this collection. It's called the two armors. Here it's part of a bigger teaching that says, in order to practice what is called Mahamudra, in order to practice Mahamudra, Gampopa says, you need these two armors, meaning like armor. And who puts on armors? Warriors. Yeah. Even though this is not teased out completely, it's like, well, that's what's implied. So you're going to war. War with what? Well, with your mental defilements, with your afflictive emotions, right? So here, in other words, these are supporting trainings for this spiritual war, so to say. Right? These two armors. So he says, you need these two armors. And what are the two? Not engaging in any unskillful actions, even for the sake of one's life, and not interrupting the continuous engagement in skillful, virtuous actions, is the first armor. And he calls that the outer armor. And there's the outer armor and there's the inner armor. So the first one speaks to the necessity, the appreciation of the outer conduct, which is pay attention to how suffering is created and how happiness is created. That they're all brought about by our actions. So don't look away from that. So this is, in other words, we need to have a clear kind of ethical context for what we're practicing. You cannot disregard the importance of this ethical framework. And the essence of the Buddhist ethical framework is do no harm. There is Buddha's level of doing no harm, and there is the beginner's level of doing no harm. Keep the Buddha's level of doing no harm as like your reference point, and we just sincerely do the best we can. You're not going to be able to do it perfectly. And when you're not doing it perfectly, right, also don't make excuses for it. on the one hand, and on the other hand, don't beat yourself over it. Actually, Gampopa also talks about this. It's like, don't be so hard on yourself. I was surprised to see that, because usually in all the Tibetan things, it's like, shape up, shape up, shape up, shape up. This one, maybe he anticipated Southern Baptists. Don't be so hard on yourself, he says. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So that's the outer armor. Inner armor of wisdom. The outer armor of conduct, ethical framework. The inner armor of understanding. And he says, and as for this, there are two aspects. One, do not shun physical illness of your body. Do not shun. Do not, do not treat, physical illness as an enemy. Two, do not shun. The technical word is abandon, but really it's like do not shun, be afraid of. By conceptualization, blah, 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 of the mind. Sickness of the body, blah, blah, blah of the mind. Mm-hmm. He says, don't shun either of them. I say, wow. Because I can guarantee you, whatever the immediate reasons of you turning up here today, what's really behind all of this is either one of those two reasons or both of those reasons. I'm tired of the blah, 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 and I'm tired of physical sickness, and whatever combination of that I'm tired of, therefore I am here. But now, the teaching here is don't shun physical illness and mental troubles. The outer physical illness and the inner mental, emotional stress. Okay, now, just very briefly. He says, how do you work with physical illness? It just kind of seems like, really? At least for me, really? But again, he doesn't engage in fancy talk. We say that these early Kagyu masters, they gave instructions like old grandmothers. Nothing fancy, direct, heartfelt, simple words. Yeah, they're not out to impress. So he says, 3 ways you can subdue the illness. And subdue here also means you can overpower illness. So what is he talking about? It's really interesting. He says, this is what we mean by overpowering illness. Although previously you did not think of this illness, right, as being small, now imagine how much worse it could be. And in that way, you can subdue. Not literally the illness itself, right? I mean, you don't become cancer-free by practicing this. He's talking about our reaction to it. Our reaction to illness. See, when you have the toothache, when you have a toothache, really, I don't know about you, I will be the first to confess, I walk around thinking, this is the worst kind of pain. Really? No, not really. Because when I'm free of the toothache, 2 months later, I get a paper cut. I go, this is the worst kind of cut. Yeah, says the one who has not been slashed by a machete. But we do. When a particular illness has turned up, we think that is the worst that can ever happen to anyone in all of human history, and now it's happening to me. So he says, you overpower that. You subdue that by saying, you know, this could be a lot worse, and it's not. Oh, yeah, that's true. It might sound kind of, I don't know, pedestrian, but try it. Because our tendency is to exaggerate in the other direction. And if it sounds like this is an exaggeration in how simple it can be, it's only to show how we exaggerate in the other direction and never even consider how much exaggeration is in that other direction. That whatever pain I'm having now is the worst kind of pain that someone can have. Subdue. 2, suffering. Root of illnesses. Oh, what is that? It's done by reflecting on, and so this requires some ability to train the mind. This requires some stability of mind. So how do you do this? He says, by reflecting on where illnesses first came from, where they remain, meanwhile, and where they finally go. By realizing that there's no place where they actually came from, and no place, even in the present, that they are actually staying at, and no place that they go to in the end, conceptualizations and conceptualizations subside. Again, you know, this is not Gampopa's solution to whatever ailments you have. Please continue to consult your doctors, whether TCM, whether at the university hospital. Yeah, we are not Christian Scientists. Yeah, go to doctor. It's talking about the mental stress that arises, that is separate from the illness. And he's teaching us how to work with that mental stress. And so here he's saying, where did this illness come from? It's not so much, you know, okay, now I'm going to research, you know, where diabetes comes from. He's saying, this burden that you have now, this concept, this worry, where does it come from? See the interdependent nature. Now this is actually seeing how ephemeral. Because if it is always there, then at all times 24 hours a day you should feel the same, but no, you don't. Right? Whatever physical illness you have, you do not feel the same towards it for 24 hours a day. But it feels like that, right? And we let that take over. Rather than, oh no, it's just, you know, throughout the day, about 6 times a day, I feel this. Well, 6 times a day equals to how many minutes or hours? Well, for some people, it's 18 hours. But more often, it's about 18 minutes. But then we let the 18 minutes, right? Objectively 18 minutes of feeling the dread, of feeling the pain and feeling the suffering of the physical illness, we let that 18 minutes of experience bleed into the 24 hours minus 18. So he says, you can get to the root of this and cut it off, which is the conceptualizations. The letting it kind of bleed into everything. And so that a paper cut is not just, the pain is not just on the finger. It pervades the whole body. How in the world? Finally, the third method is called carrying illness onto the path. Here it's called accepting the situation that you are in. And it says, carrying illnesses onto the path is knowing that all happiness and suffering exist in a manner of these two being interdependent. That when we like happiness, that when we like pleasure, we have signed up for disliking suffering. Once we make a choice, the other comes with it. It's like a thing and its shadow. There's no escape now. Just understanding that point can make both the experience of happiness and suffering to be less of a big deal, less of a burden. And next step, the one who experiences illnesses, truly what experiences illnesses is mind. And the one who holds on to being ill is also mind. And then, how stable is mind? Not that stable. Quite fragile. Here is when not stable and not fragile is good news. You know? And not me is good news. Sickness is not me. Illness is not me. It feels like me, but actually it's not. And finally, seeing this, understanding this, you should develop the kind of the big motivation now. I will use this illness to achieve something beneficial. Instead of becoming. Let it kind of have the upper hand. And so this is the not shunning the experience of physical illness. So this is the cliffhanger, right? Because the next one, the armor, we don't have time for that. The inner armor about all the blah blah blah. Already he has already introduced. But the next one is more subtle. That one actually maybe no point to even talk about it yet until, of course we're not going to screen people like this, until really the prerequisite is you have actually done some looking into how your mind, how emotions, how thoughts, how do they operate, how do they behave, what are some of, because otherwise it's all just, again, concepts. Because the next one is he talks about conceptualizations, meaning, the flow of thoughts and emotions that go on endlessly. So here is talking about a different way to work with that than even the normal way that people who meditate thinks you should work with that. There he says, see that this endless flow is your best friend, your most kind benefactor. It's like, what? Really? Yes. But if you apply that prematurely, meaning you have no idea at all how the mind works, how heavy these things can be, and how light it can also be, if you have no idea about that and you read that, you may go home with the wrong take-home lesson. Like, oh yeah, it's just fine. Then you pretend walking around like, oh, it's fine. But it's eating away. So anyway, just know that after talking about the armor, the outer armor of wisdom has to do with how you regard physical difficulties, physical illness. And then the inner armor of wisdom has to do with how you work with, how you relate with the mental, emotional stress. And more subtle than stress, really. That one, mostly you already trained that with how you relate to illness and difficulties. Here is really talking about more meditative states, like in the context of formal meditation, watching how the mind goes on and on and on and on. Yeah, how to deal with that. So, all of this is for the purpose of safeguarding the heart. There's a lot out there that has a different understanding. We don't even need to impute like malevolence, you know. We don't even need to impute malevolence to the people who are doing things that we think is harmful, destructive. We just need to understand that the Buddha sees things differently. And in a way if we apply these teachings, in a way we are swimming against the stream. It's against the stream. So there is some degree of the stress of streaming against the stream. But if the stream is leading to, a wood chipper machine, you better swim against the stream. Then the swimming against the stream, whatever stress it is, you're like, no, it's worth it. It's like the subduing the illness, So, but it gets easier. It does. Initially, it just seems like, I'm swimming against the stream. But you get to parts of the stream where then it's, again, calm waters, then you rest, Then again, you've got to go further up. But then you're also training the muscles, the ability. In this case, you don't get up there, lay eggs and die, okay? In this case, you get up there, you become free, and then you help others. You go along the banks, Come on, don't give up, don't give up.
I was thinking of the salmon.
Thank you.
So, we are just a mountain apart. If you want to be in 3D again, Urban Dharma is on the other side. Certainly, when I have time, I can come back here. Otherwise, there is Zoom, which is a lot of our participants are connecting to us on Zoom. Yeah. That's it for today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So, as it says, at the end, dedicate.
Yeah.
So we don't need to, there are, things to chant, things to recite, but just, carry this with you and say, all the preciousness that I have accumulated, I will give away. If it helps someone else, I will give away. But don't give away, like only the things that you don't need and don't want. So you need to recognize what the merit, and say, I give away. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.